The following interview is a Blanchard community production. This is Leadership Unfiltered, Community Conversations, an interview series dedicated to diving into leadership topics relevant to today's world. I'm your host, Sarah Hempel, a community builder, relationship guru, and passionate difference maker. Our aim is to hold a safe space for difficult conversations as we shed light on leadership around the world. So, join us as we dive into Leadership Unfiltered. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 8th episode of Leadership Unfiltered Community Conversations. I'm Sarah. My pronouns are she, her, and I will be your host. This month, we're going to talk about how the hardest work is often the work you don't even put on your resume. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Riti Rungta. Riti is an ICF certified leadership coach, corporate trainer, and founder of Ekya Consulting. With over 17 years of global experience across HR, business consulting, and coaching, Riti helps leaders show up with clarity, confidence, and impact. She brings a unique blend of business savvy and empathy, partnering with teams and executives to spark real, lasting growth. Her work focuses on self-awareness, executive presence, and building strong collaborative cultures, because great leadership starts from the inside out. I'm so excited to have you with us today, Riti.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm equally excited and looking forward to our conversation today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be fun. I would love to start off with just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your journey into this leadership space.
Sure. So, over the last 8 to 10 years, I've built a rich and diverse practice as a corporate trainer, coach, and a consultant, specializing in executive presence, adaptive leadership, and personal mastery. My work largely has spans across 8 industries, including BFSI, FMCG, real estate, consulting, technology, where I've designed and developed impactful learning journeys for high potential talents, women leaders, and mid to senior professionals, both individually as well as at the organization level. I'm someone who's deeply passionate about developing leaders from the inside out. So I combine the science of behavioral learning and the art of mastery so that people are able to show up with greater clarity,
Mhm.
confidence, and credibility. I've walked the path of entrepreneurship and consulting and, building my own presence in the learning space. And having had the opportunity of work with various Fortune 500 companies on their various capability building mandates.
Mhm.
Before moving into learning and development, I spent my earlier career managing operations for a tech-enabled K-12 education platform. And what followed on was hands-on experience on recruitment, international scale sales, and stakeholder management. Having done all of that, this actually gave me a 360-degree view of leadership and organizational dynamics and understanding both business priorities and human potentials, getting insight onto that side of it.
Mhm.
And that kind of allowed me to connect with people at every level. And that's largely been the reason that I got into the whole leadership development space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's quite the journey that you have. I love you said it, the 360 view of leadership. I mean, across multiple industries at various levels throughout the leadership journey. It gives you a great perspective to be able to relate to the people that you're working with. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
You described your work as helping others grow from the inside out. I love that, but I would love for you to share with our listeners, what does inside out growth mean to you, and how did that become your personal mission?
Yeah. So I think that's something which I also use as my tagline, inside out growth, right? When I talk about inside out growth, it's really not a phrase that I've picked up, from a textbook or a leadership manual. It's
Mhm.
personal. It's largely lived experience, something that emerged from my own moments of quiet reckoning. And I think you'd agree with me when I say that, when we hear words like personal mastery and inside out growth, they can sound a bit like a corporate jargon or abstract philosophy,
Yeah.
but it's really very simple. It's just about learning to understand and lead yourself before you lead anything or anyone else. Interestingly, just this morning when I was working, I came across something which read something like, before I become an expert on anything, I must become an expert on me.
Yeah.
And it just kind of resonated with me so much and it made so much sense, right? So,
Yeah.
inside out growth, if you ask me personally, is the difference between performing and becoming, between chasing validation and choosing alignment. Doing the inner work, which is the quiet, uncomfortable, unglamorous work of understanding who you are, what
Yeah.
drives you, what triggers you, what grounds you, and then using that awareness to really lead yourself better and
Hmm.
lead others
Yeah.
also, right? Um, all of us, I believe, have inside of us something which is already wise, something
Hmm.
which is already whole, but often buried under years of conditioning, expectation, noise, right? And a lot of our time is actually spent on crafting our outside, which is our image, our roles, our
Right.
achievements, accolades that we
How you
have,
show up.
how you show up, right? On the outside. But the real work, the hardest work is actually something that you don't put on your resume.
Hmm.
The self-talk to you do, the way you speak to yourself, the
Right.
self-talk, something that your inner voice, which talks about your worth, your
Hmm.
enoughness in a
Yeah.
way, right? And this became a personal mission because I did see the cost of myself growing on the outside, and I saw it in my own life. Moments of, saying that, okay, this doesn't feel like me. Um, and then when I saw that in the lives of the people I coached and trained, brilliant individuals, extremely, everything going well for them, all boxes ticked, but
Yep.
still a sense of incompleteness.
Hmm.
And yeah, when I got to know of that and when I got exposed to the whole idea and lived it through my own experience, I could not bring it to my work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. I think about like asking the question, which I'm sure you have, like, why or who are you doing this work for, right? You climb the ladder, you get to a point, and like you said, you've checked these boxes, but there's still, if someone hasn't done the work on the inside, there isn't as much fulfillment in checking those external boxes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Because you don't have the internal muscle really then to kind of navigate through the external environment that you're showing up in every day.
right.
So yeah, yeah.
I have a tattoo that's a heart with the infinity symbol in it, and it's on my hand. It's my reminder that I have to love myself first so that I can be a better mom, partner, employee, colleague, friend, etc. And it was my own personal thing that was, it's my reminder every single day that I have to take care of myself first so that I can go do the outside work and show up in the spaces and places I want to. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Filling yourself up first before you can show up for the others.
yeah, this is such a great conversation, and so important today because I think folks get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everything. And I'm thinking specifically about corporate environments. We often talk about goals and performance and what do we need to do to stretch ourselves to get to the next level, to get that
Mm.
promotion, or to get land that next project that you've got your eyes set on. But we rarely talk about this inner work. Do you have any ideas? Why do you think that is?
That's a very interesting and a very uncomfortable question. Let me begin
Yeah.
with that, right? Because we know that in the real world, the default lens is what are you delivering,
Yeah.
What is it that you bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
It's about outcomes, visibility, matrix, speed,
What
productivity.
data do you have on your resume?
Absolutely, absolutely. And while I think it's important because businesses are built on performance,
Yep.
P&Ls are real, targets matter, but here's what we often forget, which is that we can't separate the output from the person who's producing it,
Yeah.
right? And if that person is running empty, like you rightly just said, that you got to be kinder to yourself, you got to fill yourself up. If you're running empty, no metric is going to probably save you that long-term cost that you incur. And
Right.
that's why the inner work, which is the quieter work, which doesn't show up on dashboards, which doesn't show up on performance reviews. Nobody is going to write, I developed greater self-awareness as a Q3 achievement,
Right.
right? Um, and another reason why we don't talk about it is also because it's very hard to quantify.
Right. Yeah.
It's not measurable really, as numbers, as targets that we are constantly used to measuring, right? And it's also even harder to own for an individual, right? It does require a certain kind of raw honesty, a certain kind of vulnerability to sit and ask yourselves those difficult questions, which is, what is it that I'm avoiding? What is it that I'm overcompensating for? Right? So the moment when we sit down with those truths about ourselves, about our patterns, about our blind spots, that's when we kind of realize what is the kind of inner work that needs to be done. But in my experience over these years as a leadership trainer and coach, and also in real life, I mean, we see all of this around us every day. It's not just something which is limited to or restricted to the professional landscape. It's every day we see that, right?
Mhm.
People hit a wall not because they're not competent, because they didn't work on building that internal muscle which would help them against ambiguity or
Right.
failures, or how to perform, how to hold yourself under pressure, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are people who quietly rise, who quietly just shine, not
Mhm.
because they're shouting out the loudest, but because they have clarity, they have the emotional range,
Yeah.
and they have the presence, right? And that's something that no one else can do for a person. It has to come from within, right?
Right.
So while we talk about goals and deliverables, but until we start talking about the real inner work, we're only kind of working on half the equation, solving half the equation, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This is, you bring up such a good point because we can't, I often share with folks, like, you don't check yourself and your baggage at the door when you come into to work, right? Your inner work is part of what um, allows the outer work to happen. And so we have to start talking about it. We have to start having more conversations. And I think part of it too is a stigma, because there's a stigma about it being not easy, not something that we should be talking about in the workspace. And the reality is, when we each start caring about other people as people first, it's only
Yeah.
going to empower them, lift them up, and help make them more successful and more confident in the external work that they have come to do, right?
Absolutely. And if you look at it, I always think about it like this. No matter how fancy your office is, or your
Mhm.
home is, you're going to always take you along
Yep.
with you, right? So if
Yep.
you are reactive at home, you're going to be reactive in meetings. If you're someone who's constantly seeking validation, you're probably going to burn out trying to please everybody.
Mhm.
If you don't know what you really value in life, what triggers you, you'll probably keep chasing the next shiny thing, which is
Yeah.
visible to you, right? So it's important to understand what is it that really drives you. How is it that what are some of the ways in which you can come back to the center?
Mhm.
When you do that, you become someone people trust. You become
Yeah.
someone people lean on to, right? And more importantly, you also become someone you feel proud to be, you
Right.
know?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and look at it this way, we are living in a VUCA world, right?
Hmm.
We are living in a world which is constantly evolving. You know, there is volatility everywhere.
Yep.
Back in the day, access to knowledge was also limited, right?
Hmm.
We needed to get there were no YouTube videos available. We needed to kind of reach out to the right person, get hold of the right
Right.
book. But today, with one search, one prompt, you've got thousands of answers available at your fingertips. You
Yeah.
know, podcasts, courses, AI tools, everything is available. And
Hmm.
while this is important, because I love that too, it's smart work. But the
Yeah.
point is, learning fast doesn't mean that you're growing deep.
Mm.
Learning how to have difficult conversations with grace, learning how to navigate failure, sitting with discomfort is not something that Google will teach us. That's
Hmm.
something that we need to do. That's the real work. That's the internal work that we need to do with ourselves.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it does begin with self-leadership.
Yeah.
Right. And hence, while in today's world, which is moving so fast, so loud, so demanding, your biggest edge is not your title. It is about starting from the inside out and how do you lead yourself better? How do you become a self leader better than before you lead others?
Right. So if someone wants to start on this personal mastery journey that maybe feels overwhelmed because it's a lot, and we talked about like it's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where can they begin? Like what is a simple daily or weekly practice that could help them build self-awareness and alignment that they could start like tomorrow?
Um, So I would think I would say start small. And the first thing that you could do is probably start with noticing. Because what we are trying to achieve is not something which comes with bold moves or big shifts. It begins with awareness. That to me is the precursor to any growth, right? If you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't need to start with like a 5 a.m. routine or go for a complete life overhaul, right?
Right. That's
Just
good.
pause and ask yourself, what's draining me? What is it that is nourishing me? Because I'm a firm believer of simple, sustainable practices that fit into your life, not something that requires you to become someone else, because then that's not sustainable, right? So one
Hmm.
of the simplest ways to begin is by possibly carving out 10 minutes a day. No phone, no agenda, just check in with yourself. And acceptance of the fact that feeling overwhelmed is a part of the process. It does mean that you're waking up.
Hmm.
So not rushing to solve it, but asking and noticing yourself, the slowing down enough to ask yourself, what's going on in me right now?
Hmm.
No judgment, no fixes, just awareness. I think that's a great way to kind of get started on this journey, which is
Yeah.
micro check-ins in the day and just spending time, 10 minutes with yourself.
I love that. I like to say if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen. So even just scheduling that 10 minutes each day so you know that you have it blocked, you have it set aside, that that's your time to reflect and just notice what's going on and how you're feeling. Thank you.
Absolutely.
What role would you say that self-compassion plays in growth? I think a lot of times, I know for me, I am way harder on myself than I am on my colleagues and my friends. So I'm curious what role self-compassion plays in growth, especially for like high achievers. Let's start there. I have more to my question, but let's go ahead and start there.
Huge, I think huge. The kind of role that self-compassion plays is huge. And I think we're all guilty of not being kind to ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We tend to be the most overcritical with our own selves than we are
Mhm.
with others. And that's why they often say that, are you going to speak in the same way that you're speaking with yourself to your colleague or to someone
Mhm.
else that you're speaking to? This is something that you hear very often, right? So
Yes.
one thing that is often seen in high achievers is if I go easy on myself, I lose my edge, right? And the only way probably is to grow. To grow is to push harder, keep going, no matter what. And in most high pressure environments that we are referring to, whether they are corporate boardrooms or startups or trading desks, I mean, there
Yeah.
is a lot of competition, right? The mantra often is to deliver and no excuses. And
Right.
we tend to assume that being hard on ourselves is like a badge of honor.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
always say this, that you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? And we've
Also.
heard this very, very often that uh, it sounds nice to be like on a coffee mug or an Instagram post,
Yeah.
honestly. But personally, if you ask me, it's like a wake-up call, because if we are giving out our time, our energy, our perfection without pausing to refill, we don't just run low, we run dry.
Right.
And we burn out, we start breaking down, right?
Hmm.
So what's really important is to keep saying, being compassionate to yourself and being kinder to yourself every time you've achieved something. I think a great way to do that is to really celebrate something that you've achieved, a success that you've achieved, and not beat yourself down on some failure maybe.
Right. How would you say to help people stay curious and open to the change, even if they're afraid of what it might bring?
I think just noticing what it's doing to you, how you're feeling
Hmm.
about a particular situation, right? I think the biggest challenge that all of us probably face is what's on the other side of the table, what's on the other side. And the uncertainty kind of gets to us, which doesn't allow us to stay curious, which doesn't allow
Right.
us to take those chances or come out of our comfort zones,
Hmm.
right? Um, so inner work is hard. Inner work is not easy, but it's like that little ray of light at the end of the tunnel, when you achieve that little progress, when you see
Yeah.
that you've made some growth, that
Hmm.
that's the propeller, I think, and that then leads to the curiosity and learning.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so this has been such a fun conversation. I want to switch gears just a little bit. And on a personal note, what's something that you are currently working on mastering yourself?
Hmm. Okay. Um,
I'm putting you in the hot seat.
so I would call myself I'm a constant learner. I'm really curious as a person, and I'm also someone who is trying to be kinder to myself, right? Like I said, that we're probably guilty, all of us are guilty of not being as kind to ourselves. So something that I'm personally working on is mastering is being kinder to the parts of me that are still in progress,
Yeah.
the parts of me that are still unsure, the ones that feel slow, messy, or not just there yet, right?
Hmm.
Because as a coach, as a facilitator, as a consultant, I'm able to hold that space for someone else. But it's very easy to kind of abandon my own self in the
Hmm.
process, right? Um, so something that I've been telling myself often is that uh, you know, everything doesn't need to come out of pressure. Not every breakthrough has to come through burnout. I'm learning to pause more. I'm learning to listen inward, spend more time with myself, and
Hmm.
allowing myself to fill that cup of mine, right? Not as a requirement, but really as a necessity.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on currently.
I love that because I hear, everything through this conversation. I look at you and it feels like you've accomplished it all, right? Like you have a great history. You've checked a lot of those boxes, but for you to be able to say, I'm still working on the same things that I'm asking other folks to work on, is a real moment of vulnerability. So thank you. From me to you, thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thank you.
As we wrap up, I would love for you to share, for someone that's listening in with us today, what's one small, meaningful step that they could take this week toward their own personal mastery?
I think apart from the 10-minute pause,
Yeah.
what I practice for myself as well is taking some time out in one day of the week. It could be a Friday, it could be a Sunday, whatever works,
Yeah.
and just spending that time with myself. Um, one of the nudges that I might give to our listeners is pick up one area of your life where you feel like you're always pushing, right? Where you think you're measuring your worth by either comparison or by output, right? And for
Mhm.
just 1 week, this 1 week, soften your approach.
Mhm.
Ask yourself, um, what would support me here instead of stretch me? And then really give yourself that little grace, that little break. Um, because my favorite quote is that your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship that you have.
It's so true. So
Yeah.
true. I love that. Oh my gosh. As we wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much, Riti. This was truly a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation. It was truly meaningful having this chat with you. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, absolutely. It meant a lot to me. I'm walking away, and I hope our listeners are as well, with the reminder to just start small, the calendar block, even if it's not every day. I think I'll just start by putting it in once or twice a week and start there, and
Yeah.
then gradually grow that. So thank you again for sharing your story. I just want to say thank you to everyone else for joining in and sharing this time with us. It's been wonderful. And until next time, join us in the Blanchard community to unpack more conversations around leadership. Thank you. Want fast, flexible leadership development? Check out the Blanchard Leadership Marketplace. On-demand courses, a fabulous subscription pass, and 15% off your first order because you are a Leadership Unfiltered listener. Just use code COMMUNITY15. Go to store.blanchard.com and start growing today.